Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the YouTube channel today. Got a lot of interesting information to kind of share with today. It's the first day of, NBA free agency here starts soon, right? And we've already seen like LeBron say, I'm not going to LA. And now everybody's wondering, is LeBron coming back to Cleveland? And how I can't beg the question of like, what does that mean for the Cleveland real estate market, for jobs, for businesses, if LeBron does come back? And if he does come back, is just a farewell tour? Like there's a lot that goes into this guy named LeBron James. And as we all know, right, like he brought Cleveland its only championship in the NBA and the first one since the Browns back in the 60s. And it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. I can't say that it's not. But it begs the question, like, what does the housing market here in the United States, here in Cleveland, what does it look like as we wrap up the first half of the year? And, tomorrow is July 1st. Today is June 30th. I wish I could talk clearly today. Today is June 30th. Tomorrow is July 1st. A lot of information on the Cleveland housing market, a lot of information as to what's going on in our market, and I'm going to bring it to you today in this live. We're going to go over quite a bit of information, and the first piece that I want to talk about today is, where is the Cleveland real estate market at year to date? So looking from January 1 through today, where are we? And are we up or are we down comparing to where we were this time last year in 2025? So this information I am pulling from homes.com, and homes.com published an article on June 24th highlighting the Cleveland real estate market. And in that, they're sharing that the median sales price in Northeast Ohio, in Cleveland, is $257,000, which is up 4.9% year over year. So our median sales price is up almost 5% compared to last year. And that annual change there is $12,000. So our median sales price year to date is $257,000 here in Cleveland. Nationwide, nationwide median sales price is $395,000, which is up 1.8%. So Cleveland is 34.9% below the national average. And in context as to where we are as a median sales price, we're number 8 nationally for home appreciation. Now, when we look at like inventory and what is inventory doing here in Northeast Ohio, we have more houses for sale year over year than we did last year as well. And going into July, there's 6,127 homes for sale here in Northeast Ohio. So we're up 6.2%. But we're still 32.4% below May of 2019. So what that tells me is that we are still below pre-pandemic levels here in Northeast Ohio. We're still below pre-pandemic levels of inventory here in Northeast Ohio. And what interesting to note there is that we are flat year over year in homes closed, in home sales. So year to date, we've sold 2,211 homes here in Northeast Ohio. So that's down 0.1%, right? So we're flat. So that year over year, it's a modest decrease compared to a 1.2% drop in the national sales. So nationally, we've seen a 1.2% drop in home sales. And I think part of this is the pricing pressures that have shaped the buyer activity. We've seen a lot of condo sales increase year over year, where buyers don't necessarily want that, the home maintenance aspect of things. They want to own a home, but they don't necessarily want to deal with that exterior maintenance, and they're more willing to pay that maintenance fee for those items. We're also seeing We're also seeing strong demand in the lower priced options. And again, I think a lot of this too is like economically. I mean, listen, economically, there's a lot going on, right? You have gas prices that are up, you have inflation that is up, groceries cost more, just on a global scale, things going on in Iran. We don't know, like one day things are good, one day things are bad. Nobody really knows what's going on there. There's a lot of uncertainty that people are feeling. So it's not really a surprise that we're where we are. It's more of a how do we navigate this back half of 2026, right? So I also think what's playing a piece of this and what's causing some of this, and we'll get to it later, is lack of new construction here in Northeast Ohio. We'll get to that piece later because I think the lack of new construction in our market is helping drive resale numbers in ways that we haven't really seen, and what we're not seeing nationwide. Nationwide, we're seeing a lot of markets shift into a buyer's market, where here in Northeast Ohio, we are very much seeing that seller's market, if you will. And again, I think large piece of that, and again, we'll talk through it more here. I think a large piece of that is going to be due to the lack of new construction that we have here in Northeast Ohio. So look, keeping moving here on some of this information here. Days on market in Northeast Ohio is stable. Pre-pandemic, so going back to 2019, pre-pandemic days on market was hovering right around 60 days on market. Today, we're sitting at again, a stable market of 45 days. But what's key to note here is this is an average. This is an average of our total market. You're still seeing so many places in Northeast Ohio where a property goes on the market and immediately it's in multiple offers. It's sold in days. That is still very much happening. And I want you to understand that that is not the norm here in Northeast Ohio on a macro level. It is going to be very micro, very neighborhood specific, very price point driven that you're going to see some of this. And again, you are seeing it. So don't let anybody tell you that you're not seeing it. If it's priced right, if it's in the best condition available, and it's in a market that somebody wants to live in, it is going to sell quickly. We need to understand that and still remember that. So looking at days on market, again, stable at around 45 days as a macro level in Northeast Ohio. You go into different communities, you're going to see that number up, you're going to see that number down. And that's all based on the economics that drive our local real estate market, right? So on a macro level, things are one thing. And then you look at your specific subdivision, you look at your specific city, and you're going to see a whole nother set of data telling you a potentially different story. So shifting to the condo market in Northeast Ohio, a median condo price is $214,000 today, which is up 18.9%. This is our fastest appreciating segment in Northeast Ohio. And I think it's going to be like, two to three factors here of what's driving the condo market right now. One, it is the first-time homebuyer market that does not want to have to deal with the maintenance side of home ownership. That is definitely a driving piece. You also have downsizers. You have downsizers that have decided they no longer need the family home and they want to go into some of that maintenance-free style, low maintenance style living, right? So we're definitely seeing that as that generation of baby boomer is officially starting to hit retirement, coming into that. They're going, we don't need this big house anymore. We're seeing that. The third thing, and we're also going to see this in the townhome pricing. The big thing that we're seeing here is, and I'm going to couple it with townhome, is that same demographic, that same baby boomer generation that is downsizing. They're either going into condos or townhomes, and they're staying here in Northeast Ohio and spending a portion of the year somewhere else. We're seeing a lot of that right now as well, with Northeast Ohio still being primary residence. And now we're going to get our second home. We're going to go retire, and we're going to enjoy two different locations. We're seeing that in the condo and townhome market. Single family alone. So if we take it now, we segment it out, right? We've segmented it all out. We're looking at single family median number. We're looking at that at 262,500. And that is a 4.4% increase. Now, this is our core market. What this is telling us with this 4.4% increase is that our market is very, very steady. We are a steady Eddie market here in Northeast Ohio. And when we look, what we're seeing is we're seeing pieces of this where what we're looking at is some of this data. And like you look at the Cleveland home sales here from this realtor.com, from this homes.com article, what you're seeing is, you're look at the ebbs and the flow of our market. We've seen coming in, we're seeing home values continuing to increase. We're seeing the percentage change in sales price. It does ebb and flow, and we are still seeing appreciation. Even when we look at the price changes in May, we are up 4.9%, as I had said. But look at us nationally. Look at nationally. 257,000 nationally. This is home sales in May. From an affordability standpoint, Northeast Ohio, Cleveland is wildly affordable in comparison to the rest of our country. Go just south to our neighbor down south in Columbus. Their home sale is $109,000 more than ours. So you look at it and it's okay. Look at your percentage change. Cleveland's percentage change is 4.9%. You look at some of these other, you look at these depreciating markets where they're not increasing at the bottom of the graph here. Right. So again, you look at your key indicators, you are seeing a ton of growth. You are seeing a ton of people here in Cleveland making these moves. So when we look, the question is, how many of you think Cleveland is just a cheap market? Because cheap is working over time, and we are catching up. And again, it's when we look at these numbers. It's really when we look at these numbers and we see what these are looking like. We peaked as a market in Northeast Ohio. We peaked in July of 2025 at 268,000 as a metric, as a home value, right? We're currently sitting at 257,000, which is slightly below that peak. So if you're a seller and if you're a homeowner going, I wonder when I should list my house. If we peaked July of 2025 at, what is that, 268,000, right, is when we peaked July of 2025. Today, we're sitting at 257,000. If I'm sitting here going, I want to sell my house, I want to move, but I don't know where to go, and I need to maximize my value, and I want to capitalize on my equity, the top dollar market to price your home, to get on the market, your top dollar opportunities right now. Because if what we're seeing is true, and if what we're seeing is that market is coming down, it begs the question, like, when, if I could time the market, here's when I would sell. Well, if I could time the market, I would have bought my house in April or March of 2021. I would have refinanced my house in 2020. Hindsight 2020, right? Like, when we look at that, yeah, it would have made sense 5-6 years ago. But now we're sitting here today going, all right, how do I capitalize on the equity that I have? Right? Because you could be one of two potential people. You could be a homeowner that has that sub 3%, sub 4% interest rate from a purchase in 2020 or 2021. Or you could be that same homeowner that refinanced, and now you have the golden handcuffs, if you will, right? Where you have this really low rate in a house you've either outgrown, don't like, or if I could, I would. And yet you're sitting here paralyzed by this interest rate. And yet all the alternative side of that coin, the other side of that coin, is you have so much equity and your home is worth more today than it has been. How do you cash it out? How do you take that equity? Yeah, you can go get a HELOC. Absolutely, you can go get a HELOC. But those rates aren't amazing right now. So for what it's worth, does a HELOC make sense? You can sell your house and you can trade out, pull that equity, take that equity and go do something else with it, buy another property. You can sit on it and let that equity continue to build with an interest rate that you love in a house that you really don't want anymore. You see how it turns into like this, like, what do I do? How do I do it? Tell me in the comments as you're watching, like, are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Are you an investor right now? There are a lot of investors in this market right now that are taking advantage of the opportunity to come in and take some of these homes that are outdated, and they're really making opportunity, right? So let's shift gears. We've talked about pricing. We've talked about where the market is and kind of what homes are doing and what they've done over the last year, 6 months, 8 months, comparing it to 2025. Let's shift now and let's talk about the real problem that we have in Northeast Ohio housing. And this is something that isn't getting talked enough about. There's essentially no homes for sale. And I say that a little tongue in cheek, right? There's essentially no homes for sale in Northeast Ohio because what we do have is 6,127 as of this week, homes available on the market. And that might sound like a lot. However, in May of 2019, so before the pandemic, there were 9,062 homes for sale in Northeast Ohio. 32.4% more homes for sale in May of 2019 than there are today. So while inventory grew 6.2% year over year, and that's better than the national average of 4.3%, it's still not enough to shift our market from a seller's market into a buyer's market. It's still not enough to shift our market from a seller's market into a buyer's market. Now, the Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors, their tri-county blend of Akron, Portage, and Summit County, there's a 2-month supply of inventory there. And just for your knowledge, right, a balanced market where it's not a buyer's market and it's not a seller's market, right? A balanced market is 5 to 6 months of inventory. We're sitting at less than 2 on average in some locations. Another piece of why our inventory is what it is because new home listings are actually down almost 0.75%. So those sellers, and we talked about this, the sellers that have that sub 3% inventory, they're not moving unless they have to, unless there's a life event, unless they're upgrading for a reason, or maybe they bought and now they're downsizing. They're moving for a reason, not because, oh, I like that house more, I'd rather live there. Because they have the golden handcuffs of that sub 3% interest rate. So the lock-in effect is real. And sellers who refinanced in 2020 and 2021 at 3%, they're not trading into that 6.4% rate. They're just not doing it. And this isn't like a cyclical thing. Like, this is structured. They're not taking that interest rate today. They're staying in the house that they have with the interest rate that they have simply because of the economics. Simply because that payment is essentially more for the same house. They're paying today's prices versus prices before at today's rate, which is obviously higher than it was before. I also think that some of this is playing into that condo market. I'm almost wondering too, right? Like, if the condo market is up, which it is, there's no denying that the condo market is up. If it's up, is it up because purchase price for a condo is less than a single family home? Because that's a fact. In a lot of communities, you can buy a 3-bedroom condo for less than you can a 3-bedroom single family home. And when you add in the maintenance fee, is it less than they would pay to go buy a single family home with a 2-car attached garage in Brecksville, North Royalton, Strongsville, Westlake, Avon, when they can go buy a 3-bedroom condo or a 3-bedroom townhome? Is it less? So they're able to structure the deal so that it's better for them to not buy the house but move into the condo or the townhome. So in the comments, if you tell me, are you if you were searching for a new home today, are you looking for the purchase price, or are you more concerned about your monthly mortgage and how much that payment's going to cost you? And if a condo was less expensive, or more, let me rephrase, if a condo was more affordable than a single family home, would that sway your decision on where you were going to go? Tell me in the comments. So part 3 to this then is looking at sales activity and what that means. This is going to be a snapshot. This is going to be a snapshot in time of what's going on. This is not a be all end all. This is literally just a snapshot in time. In May, 2,211 homes sold, which is down 0.1% from last year, according to the data. Nationwide, the same homes were down 1.2% nationwide. So Cleveland was down 0.1%. Nationwide, the national average is down 1.2%. So Cleveland held its own ground. We outperformed the national average, the national trend. The ACAR Tri-County area, again, the Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors, Tri-County, Cuyahoga, Portage, and Summit County. Again, we're not looking at Lorain. We're not looking at Medina. We're not looking at Lake. We're looking at 3 different counties, Cuyahoga, Portage, and Summit. The closed sales were down 0.4%. So a slight pullback, but nothing drastic. So the numbers that we need to watch the rest of this year are going to be pending home sales. Pending home sales. And again, this could be completely null and void depending on what happens with Iran, depending on what happens with, from a macroeconomic standpoint. A lot of this could be a totally moot point. And yet, if we watch pending sales, the Akron Cleveland Association of Realtors, again, 3 counties, they're down 7% year over year. And pending sales are the leading indicator of what's going under contract today and closing in 30 and 60 days. So is this signaling a softer market as we head into late summer, as we head into July and August? Is our market going to soften? I don't know. Time is going to tell. But if pending sales are down in those 3 counties, it's going to be interesting to look at what's happening at a macro level when we look at the 6 counties surrounding Cleveland, right? When we look at Cuyahoga, Lake, Lorain, Medina, Summit, and Portage County. We could even go into Geauga a bit. And when we look at that macro level, right, we can kind of see. So 2 thoughts here is, if pending sales are slowing down, that tells me that buyers are getting more selective and that pricing and condition need to be on point overall, and that overpriced listings are going to sit. And I got to be honest with you, this is a conversation we are having with our sellers. We've had this conversation more often than not these last, 30 to 45 days. If your price and your condition do not match the market, your house is going to sit. if you're a seller, you know what? If you're a buyer, listen to this too. If you're a seller, the list price is an invitation to come look at the house. The list price is literally an invitation to come look at the house. So if we know that price, condition, and location, those three things, price, condition, and location, if we know those three things are what causes a buyer to purchase a property, if two of those three are out of sync, you can have the best location in this city. You can have the best location in the subdivision. But if the condition of the property and the price don't meet where the buyer is, the house is simply going to sit. Because buyers have been conditioned since COVID not to just write an offer. They're going to wait for you to get your head out of the sand and realize that your price is too high. And you're either going to take the house off the market or you're going to reduce it, right? Buyers have been conditioned to think this way. And if you're a buyer, there are fewer competing offers than this time last year. Again, we know, we've talked about that. Not every property is going into multiple offers. We know that. So buyers have a little bit more breathing room. And by a little bit, I literally mean a little bit. They have time to think. And in some instances, they cannot sleep on it, right? They can't sleep on it. That adage of if you want to sleep in it, you can't sleep on it. That is still a very real thing here in Cleveland because there might not be an offer on the property now. And yet at dinner time, there might be. So you have a little bit more breathing room if you're a buyer. And yet, you know, because you've been conditioned for the last 6 years to know that if it's not priced right, you're not going to pay for it. You've been conditioned to think that way. Because the way our parents, the way that baby boomer generation, the way they bought houses is not the way that you're buying houses today. And they haven't quite realized that yet. I'm going to repeat that. The way the baby boomer generation bought houses is not the same as the way you're buying houses. And we have this conversation with our sellers all the time, especially when they're 50 plus, the 50 plus seller. The way they bought their house is not the way that today's buyer's buying. Because you guys, as buyers today, you have access to more information than they did when they bought the house. The internet, in the last 10 years, last 5 years, consumers have access to more information than they have before. You can go and you can see what 123 Main Street down the road sold for. You can see what's actively moving. And you've watched your friends, you've watched your colleagues get into different offer situations and do crazy things because they had to. And now you're sitting there and you're looking at their property going, I'll just wait for them to reduce the price. I'm not going to write them an offer, even because just because you're not going to do it. And see that generation, that 50 plus generation of homeowner that goes, I don't understand why they just won't write an offer. Because you, the buyer, have been conditioned over the last 6 years of watching the market. You know that if it's not priced right, you're just going to wait. Because the way they bought houses was the price started here and then it would get reduced and then it would go here and then it would go here and then it would go here and then it would go here. And that's why over 90 days or 6 months or even sometimes a year is how long it would take a house to sell. Today, it's selling in less than 45. Because if it's not priced right, it's not going to move. So why take a process that they went through at 6 months or 12 months? Why drag it out when you can just price it here and sell it in 30? So let's talk about where the market's heading. Obviously, if I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you where the market was heading. You'd never see me again. I'd be on the beach. Actually, I wouldn't even be at the beach. I'd be at Epcot. I would own a 2-bedroom villa at Boardwalk. there at Walt Disney World, and that's where I would live permanently. But since I don't own that crystal ball, let's just talk about where the market's heading. So if pending sales are down, which they are, if pending sales are down, that could lead to a softer market heading into late summer, early fall. So we want to keep an eye on pending sales. Inventory is growing, but again, Cleveland is 32% below pre-pandemic. We're 32% below where we were before COVID started. So we still have no inventory. Yeah, prices are down, pending sales are down, but we have no inventory. Condo sales are up 2.3%. Single family sales are down 0.3%, which all that's doing is signaling that buyers are shifting to affordability options, not necessarily not buying, right? They're just looking at the math and they're doing a math problem. And this is like a duh, right? Where like suburbs are outpacing Cleveland proper. And they're just going to continue because of what you get from an amenity standpoint in a subdivision, in a community, in a suburb that you're not going to get in the city. Lorain County, Medina County, you guys are booming right now. You're booming right now. People want to get out of Cuyahoga County into that lower property taxes. They want lower taxes. They're moving into Lorain and Medina County. Summit County, you're seeing it too. Cuyahoga County, you are falling a little bit. But again, like you're 20 minutes from downtown, you're closer than they are. So yes, we are still in a seller's market. We are wildly still in a seller's market. Prices are holding strong. Inventory is very thin and homes are moving fast. If you're a buyer waiting for prices to drop, the data does not support your idea. If you're a buyer waiting for prices to drop, you've been waiting since 2020 and they've just simply have gone up every single year. If you're a seller right now, you have pricing power. You have the magic 8-ball. But I want you to understand that you're not Thanos here. You can't just snap your fingers and make it all happen. Your power is very limited. With pending sales softening and overpriced homes sitting, you have to come in sharp. You have to have a plan with your listing agent. You actually have to have a plan, like legitimate plan. There are too many agents out there that don't have an effective plan to launch a property into the market, to enter a property into the market. You have to have a legitimate plan on how you're going to price the property. And if you're an investor watching this, you might want to think about looking at that condo market as a way to get in low and build some equity with a rehab potentially. Because that condo segment, it's appreciating and inventory growth is signaling a real demand at that entry level point. So if you're able to get into an outdated condo, make it really pretty, renovate it, you're going to have a demand. You're going to have a buyer demand there. So look, think cities like Parma, like Brook Park, like Fairview Park, Rocky River, go into portions of Broadview Heights, north of Royalton. Look at like that outlying Cleveland suburb, Euclid, Richmond Heights. Look at those Shaker for 100% Shaker University Height condos. You look at that entry-level condo price point and you see, well, okay, I can get this property. I can put in a new kitchen, new paint, new flooring. I can really make it nice. And then that's where I think you're going to see a lot of return there as an investor. Couple other cool things before we wrap up. David Njoku, former Browns player David Njoku, he listed his home for sale in Columbia Station. It's got a pool. It's got a football field, theater, its own barber shop. Would you get your hair cut at home? Would you bring a barber in if you could? I think I would. I definitely think I would. Like if I was in a position to have somebody come to my house to cut my hair, I would definitely do it. And like, listen, like, do other athletes, like, will another athlete buy this, or is this going to be a doctor that comes in and buys this house in Columbia Station? I don't know. So in the comments, tell me if you could buy David Njoku's home. I'll have it in the show notes. I'll have the link in the show notes. If you could buy David Njoku's home in Columbia Station, would you do it? That's what I got for you today. Our market, listen, the market in Cleveland, it's still strong. It's still strong. It's still a seller's market. Buyers have opportunity, but they don't have opportunity to sleep on it. We're not quite there, but buyers have opportunity. And sellers, your window to maximize your equity, it's here. It's right now. As the market heads into July, into August, into fall, we need to keep tracking those pending numbers. Because if those pending numbers continue to slide, inventory will continue to creep up. Your opportunity there is going to be a little different. But thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Rich Ganem. I run the Ganem Group here in Northeast Ohio. If you haven't hit subscribe, do that. Click that little dingy thing, the little bell. Get alerted every time we give you a new video. Every single week, we're giving you a new video. This last one that we put out yesterday, on Monday, we are comparing Richfield Village to Richfield Township and which one might be best for you. We also have one coming where we're going to compare a South Side neighborhood to a West Side neighborhood. That will be hitting on Monday of this coming week. It's been great chatting with you. I've really enjoyed my time with you today. We will see you next time here on the YouTube. Is that what we're calling it? Are we calling it YouTube or the YouTube? Kind of like Facebook or the Facebook. I don't know. Either way, let me know in the comments. It was great chatting with you. We'll talk to you next week.